sorry, you, sir.
My question is addressed to Professor Curley. I wanted to talk about Abraham, since it's rather a separate case than the rest of them, since in the case of Abraham, the action was never performed that was originally commanded. And so this seems to me, if it's to be a problem, you need to move from God has commanded something which is clearly morally wrong to saying that the command itself, even if not followed through, is wrong. Or if the story ultimately represents something else. And that's why this is so puzzling to me, is because the ultimate point of the story is that God is good because he didn't require child sacrifice. For instance, in Finding Nemo, there are two fish in the mouth of a whale, and the whale commands them, well, to the one who knows how to speak whale, to move to the back of the throat. The one who doesn't speak whale is extremely skeptical of this, and she says, well, you just have to trust me, because I guess in this case, the clearly morally wrong thing to do for a fish is to swim to the back of the throat of a whale. And eventually he just trusts him rationally, in his case. He doesn't speak whale, he has no idea who this whale is. And they go to the back of the throat and are freed through the blowhole. And so the point of this story in Nemo is, for the fish, is that the whale, God, is good. So how in that case could you represent that as going to two, that a command itself is wrong, even if the ultimate point of a story is the exact opposite of God wanting that thing to in fact occur?
Well, I guess I think the ultimate point of the story is a bit different than you're suggesting, namely that I take the ultimate point of the story to be your loyalty to God has to be so great that it transcends your loyalty to anyone else. So even though God may, as an act of mercy, not require you to carry out the command that he's given you, he still wants you to demonstrate that you're willing to do it. And I regard that as not a nice feature of God. The larger question of whether Israel practiced, the story of Abraham and Isaac, I think, is the story that we tend to focus on when we talk about child sacrifice in Israel. But there is a passage in Exodus, which I refer to in one of my footnotes, where there seems also to be a more general command that you should offer up the firstborn to God. There's a question as to how far that was a command that was ever acted on. I refer in my footnote to this book by John Levinson, The Death and the Resurrection of the Beloved Son, which suggests that, in fact, at a certain stage, Israel did fairly frequently practice child sacrifice in the belief that it was required of them by their God. That's presumably what Ezekiel is protesting about when he rages this. He's not exactly, he's condemning the older morality, and that's presumably what he's talking about, rather than the specific incident of Abraham and Isaac. So, I think that at a certain stage in the tradition, child sacrifice was regarded as something that you might need to do.
We'll take about 3 more minutes, and I'd like to get 2 more questions. Yours, sir, and yours here.
This is a brief comment that I want you to respond to, if you will. And it resonates a little bit with what Professor Wettstein was saying earlier on. It seems to me one of the crucial differences between you and Peter is what is the meaning of the word inspires in the statement, God inspires X, where X is some text. And it seemed to me that you're working with some kind of almost, I'm going to say, wooden or literalistic or sort of dictationistic notion of inspire, where if God inspires something, then God just gave the person the word to write down. And I just want to assure you that there are a lot of much more sophisticated versions of biblical inspiration that are out there, some of them written by people in this room, which are able to say that a text is inspired, even though there might be things in the text that God doesn't approve of. So I would encourage you to think along those lines a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy to think along those lines. The whole notion of inspiration is somewhat mysterious to me. I realize that the dictation model is not the only way to think about inspiration.
I'm sorry, please.
But I did think that, I mean, Peter wasn't any more eager than I was to explore the precise nature of inspiration, but he did think that, and I think I would agree with him about this, that if you're going to claim that the biblical text is inspired by God, then you must think that it's at least more or less like, that God is more or less satisfied with the way it turned out. And I didn't think that he could be more or less satisfied with the way it turned out if it was seriously misleading about his moral nature. The adjective seriously is, or excuse me, adverb is rather important in that sense.
I think we should continue our discussion during the break. Let's thank our speakers and commenters.